Good morning everyone. Today we will study about the asexual reproduction. In the last class we have discussed about what is life, what are the characteristics of the living being, how does the reproduction helps in increasing and maintaining the species across generation after generation on the planet Earth. What is lifespan? What is the lifespan of different organisms? And how does the this correlation between the size of the plants or animals is associated with the lifespan. For example, we saw the example of mango and peepal tree. Both are structurally similar, but if you look at its lifespan, it's different. So today we have to study about asexual mode of reproduction. Reproduction, as we know, it helps continue the species by producing offspring like the parents or with little bit of variation which is produced by asexual mode of reproduction and sexual mode of reproduction. So today we have to study about asexual reproduction, which produces progeny exactly like the parents. The genetic makeup and morphology of the progeny is similar to the parents. No variants are created. The variants can only be created by the sexual mode of reproduction. So what is asexual reproduction? Asexual reproduction is defined as the capacity of an organism, whether it's a plant, animal, or a unicellular organism, to produce progeny like itself. A single individual, a single parent itself can produce progeny by itself. Now we have to see that what are the characteristics of this asexual mode of reproduction. What are the characteristics? What are the features? The first feature of the asexual mode of reproduction is the offspring, that is the progeny, that is the child, that is the daughter cells or the child produced, are genetically and morphologically similar to the parents. They are identical to the parents, and the method of reproduction is simpler compared to the sexual mode of reproduction. And in some cases, the mitotic cell division is responsible for asexual mode of reproduction in case of unicellular organisms. Now, we need to study what are the examples of organisms in which the asexual mode of reproduction occurs. The asexual mode of reproduction occurs in single-celled organisms, for example, monerans and protistans. It occurs in plants and it occurs in animals. So we'll study one by one that how does this asexual mode of reproduction occurs. So first example we have to study about the asexual mode of reproduction in Monera and Protista. We'll start with the example of budding in yeast. In case of budding, the cell division causes the single cell of the yeast. We are taking the example of yeast. The bud-like structure is formed which doesn't detach itself to the parent. It remains attached to the parent, but the nucleus gets separated. We'll see the diagram how does the budding occurs in case of yeast. So you can see the example of budding in yeast. Here is a budding yeast cell. It has nucleus, and what happens, the nucleus starts moving to the periphery, and then we can see inside this nucleus, once it moves to this periphery, it starts dividing itself. Once it reaches at the periphery at the cell membrane, it starts stretching itself and dividing itself. This is vacuole. Now once the nucleus has elongated itself, it divides itself, and then after this step is defined as karyokinesis, that is the division of the nucleus, followed by the division of the cytoplasm occur, which is called as cytokinesis. This results in formation of a separate bulging protrusion-like structure which is attached to the yeast cell, and this structure is called as bud. So, the asexual reproduction in yeast occurs by the karyokinesis, cytokinesis, and the bud form is attached itself to the parent yeast body. Once the bud matures and the parent body is not able to control the attached bud, the bud detaches itself from the yeast and a offspring is formed, which is morphologically, that is how it appears in appearance, and genetically identical to the parent yeast cell. So this is example of budding in yeast. The second we have to study is binary fission in amoeba. Now what is binary fission? Fission means splitting. So the cell splits into two parts. It involves the two steps of karyokinesis, which is the division of the nucleus. Karyon means nucleus, kinesis means splitting, and cytokinesis, which is the splitting of the cytoplasm. So what happens, we'll see in this diagram. The cell, it divides into two halves and rapidly grows into an adult. Here in this example of amoeba, you can see the amoeba nucleus. What it does, it starts enlarging itself. Enlargement of the nucleus occurs. Once the nucleus enlarges, what happens, the karyokinesis begins. The splitting of the nucleus occurs, the breakdown of the nucleus occurs, and this nucleus splits into two parts, followed by the cytokinesis. Once the nucleus splits, a furrow-like structure, the inner bending of these two parts occurs, leads to formation of two separate daughter cells from the parent cells. So it involves enlargement of the nucleus followed by the splitting of the nucleus, defined as karyokinesis, followed by the separation of the cytoplasm called as cytokinesis, resulting in formation of the daughter cells from the main amoeba cells. This process is defined as binary fission. Binary means two, fission means splitting. So the parent amoeba cell is dividing itself into two daughter cells. Now we have to study about the asexual reproduction in kingdom fungi and simple plants and animals. Now how does asexual reproduction occurs in fungi, algae, simple plants, Thallophyta, algae, and animals? In animals we have to study two examples, as it says in NCERT. One is porifera, which is sponges, and second one is hydra, which is coelentra tornidarians. So asexual reproduction occurs in fungi, simple plants, and animals by special reproductive structure. By what it occurs? It occurs by special reproductive structure. We have to study four special reproductive structures. These four special reproductive structures are zoospore, conidia, birds, and gemmules. So what happens and how does this special reproductive structure helps in reproduction? The zoospore is microscopic motile structure. It occurs in Chlamydomonas, and zoospore is motile body with flagella-like structure. This flagella-like structure, it divides and separates from and comes, and it grows. Once these spores are formed during the unfavorable condition. Once the favorable condition returns, the spores, they start growing, and they give birth to a new algae. In case of conidia, which the example is penicillium, the zoospore is a special reproductive structure present in Chlamydomonas algae. Conidia is special reproductive structure present in penicillium fungi, and in this case a basidia like structure called as conidium. Conidium is basidia, like baseball bats like structure in which the spore formation occurs. these spores, they split up from the main this penicillium body, and once the favorable condition restores, they grow back into this fungus penicillium. From this penicillium notatum itself, the first antibiotic penicillin was derived. The third example of a special reproductive structure is of birds. This birds, it occurs in case of hydra. Hydra is Coelenterata and Cnidarian. In case of Hydra, you can see the bird forms itself on the body of Hydra, and once it matures, it detaches itself from the Hydra body part. The fourth special structure is gemmules. The gemmules are sponges. The example of gemmules, like a special reproductive structure which helps in asexual reproduction, is sponges, which are porifera, simple pore containing primitive animals of kingdom Animalia, in which the gemmules helps in asexual mode of reproduction. So this is about the asexual mode of reproduction that occurs in fungi, simple plants like algae, and monerans and protistans, and it occurs in individual parents. The offspring is genetically identical and morphological identical to the parents, and it occurs in case of fungi, and in case of monera and protista by binary fission, in case of amoeba and budding in yeast, which we saw the example with diagram. And then special reproductive structure helps in reproduction, asexual mode of reproduction by zoospore, conidia, birds and gemmules in case of chlamydomonas, penicillium, hydra and sponges. So I hope you will be able to make out from this video class and learn the concept and be able to answer the questions related to this topic. Thank you. Have a great day.